This is the first scene of Tatl we see in Majora's Mask. There is no sign of this white fairy being an important figure in the events to come. While it can reasonably be argued that Navi was destined to accompany the boy in green clothes, there is no evidence whatsoever that Tatl, just like Link, is a central figure to Termina's future. Both stumble into each other by coincidence, not fate. Every time Link's companions are being discussed, one thing, to me at least, strikes out. I rarely see Tatl getting mentioned, let alone getting the praise as a character she in my eyes deserves so much. Despite being such a wonderful companion, I feel she's often overlooked in favor of Midna. Considering Navi and Fi are memes at this point, and Midna being seen as a very well-written companion, Tatl unfortunately falls into the shadows of these famous or infamous companions. So, with this video, I want to change that, shining some light on this fairy, broaden people's perspective on her, and finally do Tatl justice. Objectively, I have to say that Midna is probably the best companion in any Zelda game, and rightfully so. However, Tatl is holding a very special and nostalgic place in my heart, and is a very close second favorite to me, far ahead of every other Zelda companion, without having to fear any competition in the slightest. In this video, I want to analyze Tatl's relationship with Link, and what role it played to save Termina. I will divide this relationship into certain phases and see how it develops and changes throughout the game. I also want to analyze how Tatl's outlook on Skull Kid changes, especially in reaction to the events she witnesses when traveling with Link. So, let us begin our analysis of Tatl and our journey through Majora's Mask. Tatl's relationship with Link can be divided into 6 phases: hostility and mocking, unwilling and reluctant cooperation, willing cooperation, apologizing and regrets, trusting partnership, and friendship. The first phase, hostility and mocking. During the opening cutscene and the first minutes of the game, we see Tatl's unpleasant and dark side. She's rude, snarky, and condescending, even to her brother. This begins to change when she's put out of her comfort zone by being separated from Skull Kid and Tail. She's also easy to irritate and frustrate, as well as immature, as she's blaming Link for her mistakes and refusing to take responsibility for them. At first, at least. However, we also already see her cunning, charming, and funny side flash up, as well as her concerns for Tail. Maybe the fear of being berated and called out by the heavy-masked salesman, in addition to the already experienced loss of control, put Tatl in her place, showing her that there is no need for arrogance and being mean in this current flow of events. The second phase, unwilling and reluctant cooperation. This phase starts rather quickly, in the next room already, actually. Tatl realizes that she needs Link in order to reach her own goals, so she's slowly getting less hostile towards him. After leaving the clock tower, the goals for Link and Tatl have already shifted. 1. Reuniting with Skull Kid and Tail. 2. Getting the Ocarina of Time as well as Majora's Mask back. 3. Returning to the heavy-masked salesman. Still not very fond of him, she nevertheless agrees to cooperate. However, we already see a very interesting dynamic in place. The closer she gets to Link, the farther away she drifts from Skull Kid. Shortly after leaving Clock Tower, when planning to visit the Great Fairy of Magic in North Clocktown, we can already see an ever so slight critical distance between Tatl and Skullkid emerge, as Tatl judges Skullkid's power inferior to that of the Great Fairy. It shows the amount of respect Tatl has for the Great Fairy. This distance is even enlarged when Tatl, to her horror, discovers that Skullkid has actually shattered the Great Fairy into pieces. It is finally here where Tatl stops seeing Skullkid with rose-colored glasses and recognizes what the right thing to do is: stopping him. The third phase, willing cooperation. Seeing Skullkid doing harm to people and things Tatl cares about completely changes her opinion of him. As I've shown, the Great Fairy is of much importance to Tatl, so this is what pushes her over the edge into Link's camp, so to speak, and into fully antagonizing Skullkid. Merely some hours after leaving the Clock Tower, that is. Her complaining about having to chase the bombers not only shows how irritated and at stress she actually is, but also how her goals have finally shifted and aligned with Link's. Her panicking remarks on how much time is left also show that Tatl has finally understood what's at stake here for Termina. During the confrontation atop the Clock Tower, events are speeding up. There's a lot to unpack here. At first, Tatl still rather calmly tries to argue with Skullkid, and just asks him if he can give the mask back. However, as she sees Skullkid isn't really paying attention, perhaps is out of his mind even, she realizes it is pointless. Tail utters his by now infamous warning, but Skullkid insults and hits him in response to that. Seeing this, Tatl gets really angry, the final straw that pushes her away from Skullkid for good. Tatl breaking her friendship with Skullkid is a very powerful moment in the game. As valuable time passes and Link is lost in memories, she panics more and more, shouting out in complete desperation for somebody, anybody to help, and praying to the goddess of time is yet again a very powerful moment of her. It wouldn't surprise me if she was crying at this point. The goddess of time aids our two heroes in their quest, and the day is saved, for now at least. Confused and relieved at the same time, awestruck by Link's powers, she nevertheless quickly regains her sassy composure. It's immediately decided what to do next, and so they head out to the 4 temples of this land to free the 4 giants trapped in there. Link and Tatl seeing the drawing on the tree and her telling him what happened, how the 2 fairies got to know Skullkid, is a very quiet and melancholic moment. Tatl reflecting on what Majora did to Skullkid's mind just shows how far she's come since the beginning of the game. However, while Tatl's now quick and eager to help Link, this doesn't stop her from uttering some funny or even sarcastic comments, even at Link's expense, showing she still retained her humor and sharp tongue. The 4th phase, apologizing and regrets. As Woodfall Temple is cleared, the effects of Link's and Tatl's cooperation finally start to show in regards to Termina's fate, after which, filled by regrets, she apologizes to Link. What she and Skullkid did to him, what she and Skullkid did to Epona. She's apologizing while still keeping her sassiness, much to our amusement. This scene shows Tatl's growth. She recognizes her mistakes and is trying to make up for them. Or in other words, she's growing as a person. and becoming more mature. This marks the turning point, as their relationship grows from colleagues working together to partners trusting each other to being friends. The fifth phase, trusting partnership. With this relationship now having gone through quite some development, having witnessed a more than rough beginning, a change of opinion from Tatl, a heartfelt apology, it evolves into something deeper than mere cooperation. Link and Tatl know they can rely on each other, and also know at least some of the other's vulnerabilities, with Link going through the horrors of being transformed into a Deku scrub, and Tatl deeply caring for her brother, just to name the two most obvious ones. Without any hesitation, they go through dangerous battles, epic quests, and heroic deeds together, both for self-centered and altruistic reasons, freeing the other three giants from the respective temples, and helping the troubled citizens of Termina. In my opinion, at this point in the game, Tatl has become very close to him, and very distant to Skullkid. This is evident when talking to the Eastern Giant. He asks the two to forgive their friend, but Tatl is merely confused. What friend? Even when playing Majora's Mask as a child and teenager, it was always clear to me that he was referring to Skullkid. But Tatl doesn't think this way. Skullkid is no longer her friend, so she's confused as to who this friend of hers is that needs forgiveness. Seeing how derogatory she talks about him atop the clock tower later on, I think it's pretty clear that she thinks Skullkid doesn't deserve her forgiveness. Who knows, if it wasn't for Tail defending him, perhaps Tatl wouldn't have forgiven Skullkid at all, which can be considered an understandable reaction from her side. When revisiting the roof of Clock Tower after defeating Majora, Tatl's dialogue changes slightly. She's interrupting Tail's defense of Skullkid. Tatl at one point is also admiring Link's bravery. She's playfully teasing Link's bravery and stubbornness, comparing Tail to him and putting the two on the same level of affection. This just again shows how much Tatl's and Link's relationship has evolved. If you agree to give Sakon your sword and talk to him again after that, both times Tatl turns red, starts emitting a high-pitched constant ring, and starts attacking Sakon. It's really a comical and hilarious scene, but it again shows what Tatl is willing to do for Link at this point, and that she doesn't take this situation lightly anymore. However, knowing her sassy personality, she certainly would use this moment to berate Link afterwards for being so careless and naive to give his sword away to a suspicious thief. It's also nice to see that during the final battle against Majora, Tatl is appealing to Link's experience, as well as her helping and supporting him with her thoughts about the enemy. The sixth phase, friendship. Unlike the other phases, I can't really pinpoint one moment or one chain of events and say, this is where the previous phase stops and this phase begins. It just developed over time as the adventure continued and their relationship grew deeper and stronger. Their bond has grown tremendously over the course of the game. There's one scene in particular I want to talk about. After Majora is defeated, Link falls unconscious and wakes up in Termina Field in front of the walls of Clocktown. After witnessing the four giants forgiving their old friend, Skullkid realizes he also has three new friends as well. The false dichotomy of Link versus Skullkid, with Tatl and Tail stuck in between, having to choose a side, is finally broken and overcome. It was artificially created by Majora, who was taking advantage of Skullkid's fears, sadness, and frustration. With this newfound hope and happiness, the game concludes. Tatl again playfully teases Link about leaving already, after which another powerful moment occurs. Tatl addresses Link directly, just as he's beginning to ride away, and says or even shouts, "Thank you," expressing all the gratefulness, joy, and friendship she feels towards him in the two final words of the game. She wants him to know how much she appreciates everything he has done, but Link doesn't hear her. The distance is too large, he's too far away already. The scene always breaks my heart. However, not all hope is lost. We see Link returning to the Carnival of Time, performing together with the Indigo-Go's the song they practiced. I also like to imagine that after this he's having some fun with Tatl, Tail and Skullkid during the carnival. Therefore, Link's and Tatl's friendship continues to bloom for a little while longer, before he finally leaves Termina. Another question I want to answer is, why does all of this happen? Why does Tatl ever switch sides and joins Link? Why doesn't she just stick with Skullkid and his increasingly violent shenanigans? The answer is that Tatl has her heart and mind in the right place. She's a decent person. As seen by her concerns for Tail's safety and well-being, as well as increasingly for the citizens of Termina, she is a caring and loving fairy. And as seen by her siding with Link throughout the adventure, she is very open-minded, able to change her perspective on the issues and people around her if needed. The same can also be said about Tail, although we don't see his perspective and thought process nearly as much. Unfortunately, we don't know what Tatl's and Tail's life was like before the events of Majora's Mask, so we can only speculate with educated guesses on how they became what we see in-game. As Link's drawing of Link, Tatl, Tail, Skullkid and the four giants in the Lost Woods shows, he considers Tatl a dear friend, and I'm sure she feels the same way about him. Link may have lost Navi, but he found another fairy friend instead.